It's about the journey, not the destination. Reality is better than imagination. When I feel free, free to be me. When I feel free, free to be me.
Welcome, everybody, to Travel Your Heart, a podcast where two gay grandpas explore life's travels together. Hey, everybody, it's Grandpa Bobby.
Grandpa Scott.
And welcome to another episode of Travel Your Heart, brought to you by two gay grandpas. So what are we doing on this episode, Grandpa?
Well, I'm really excited about this episode because this episode is where we answer questions that our subscribers and followers from our social media platforms submitted to us.
Brought to you by you. So this will be kind of interesting. So what we did is we gathered all the questions together, we wrote them down, and honestly, we have enough for 2 episodes. Yeah. So we'll try to get through most of them today. But Grandpa Scott and I have not even discussed these questions with one another, and we shuffled them up. So we have no idea what's coming up first. So let's see how this is going to go.
This is going to be very candid.
Yeah.
And maybe full of surprises.
Very
to us.
To one another. Okay, so I'll go first.
Okay.
So the first question is, how did you know each other was the one, and how long did it take you to find out? You go first. We'll both answer these questions.
Okay. This is going to sound very romantic.
Aw.
It is. But when I first saw you across the dance floor, and I saw you smile, and I saw into your big brown eyes, I just went, that's the one. That's the one.
How long did it take you to find out? Well, obviously, it sounds the second you met.
Yeah, it was about 5 seconds to cross the dance floor to reach you.
Well, it's a funny one. How did I know that Grandpa Scott was the one? Easy. He told me. I was a little...
I did.
He did. I'm not kidding. I'm a little slower on things. Remember, I had only met Grandpa Scott 2 weeks after I moved to San Francisco. I was there for a whole bunch of partying. I wasn't there to settle down. So I was a little more reticent. But it took me a few weeks of dating and being charmed by him and his love bomb. And that I remember actually where it was that I told you I loved you. Do you remember where it was?
Oh, God, that wasn't a question submitted.
I told you.
Unfair. I'm romantic, but I got a crappy-ass memory.
Remember, we took a ferry boat to Sausalito, and we were on the rocks, sitting there, and I just realized that you were the one.
We weren't eating anything at the time.
So that's why there's
no meal, no memory.
Forget that one. Okay, let's go on to the next question.
Okay. What have you learned from traveling that has changed your life?
Well, a lot of things have changed my life, but one of the things that I remember particularly is growing up in the 1950s and 1960s. It really was inundated that we were America and that we were the best country and that everybody who was in America, should be pitied, and that everybody would want to be Americans if they could. But when we went to Europe for the first time, I realized something different. I realized that people loved their own country. They loved their own culture, and that they weren't like saving up money to climb on a boat to come over to the U.S. No, they were very happy. And it made me realize that you don't have to be in one specific spot to be happy. You can be happy in any number of places. And that really had an impact on my worldview.
Yeah.
How about you?
Oh, well, you know what? That's exactly what I was going to say. Because when you come from a small coal mining town, when you come from a state that doesn't have a lot of people in it, and you do get kind of a provincial outlook, and you kind of buy into that. Well, the USA. And don't get me wrong, love my country, all right? Love my country. But like you said, other people love theirs, and they're not beating our door down to get here. They enjoy their nation.
Yeah, I wish more people here understood that. And maybe it's because, we're only adjoining Canada and Mexico, that if we were adjoining a lot more countries, they would see the diversity of cultures and history and how people appreciate what makes their space unique.
Yeah.
Okay, on to the next question. Drum roll, please.
Ba-ba-da-ba-dum.
Okay, this one says, what careers have you had? Well, I'll go first because mine'll take about 2 seconds. I am an architect. I have always wanted to be an architect. I will always be an architect. I talked about this in another episode. I wanted to be an architect since the age of 11, and I was watching Mr. Ed the Talking Horse with Wilbur Post, who was an architect. And I started drawing house plans and looking through magazines. And every Sunday, I would cut out the house of the week. It would be in the plan. And I had a little folder and a book of that, and it never stopped in me. And I went to college for a 5-year degree in architecture, and I've been practicing architecture now for going on 46 years. So this is a new career.
Yeah, I've always questioned, you've been practicing for 40 years. When are you going to become a professional? But I'll be here all week, folks. And then I go to the Poconos.
And I am slowing down and taking a little fewer projects on. I'll always be practicing in some. It's just something in me that I just love. Although being a content creator is now a newfound profession for you to add to your list. So we got about 20 minutes. So why don't you go on to all the careers you've had?
Get your favorite beverage right now, okay?
I'll have a drink of water.
Because I'm like Madonna. I recreate myself frequently. Well, I started out to be a teacher. Then I went into community mental health work, all right? Then I worked in a hospital in the pulmonary medicine lab. Then I got into banking in the human resource department. I was going to become like a HR generalist. Started the cycle, ended up in training and development, loved it, became a human resource officer. Then I set up my own training and development company. And then, just will grab you, then I went into screenwriting.
Because they're so related.
They're so related. And actually was rep by one of the finest agencies in Hollywood for writers. That was Writers and Artist Agency. And then I went into real estate. Then I sold the firm, the real estate firm. It was a small boutique firm. And then I ended up working for a taskmaster here at Robert Paleo Design, and then kind of got into this whole content creation.
Wait, you forgot an entire segment of your life where you were a political candidate.
Oh, yeah, I was a political candidate for the California State
For 2 elections.
2 elections.
And that was a full-time job, too.
And DJ.
Oh, that's right. Part-time DJ.
Back when they used vinyl.
Oh,
folks.
and you forgot also, you're what I like to call a semi-professional photographer. Scott shoots amazingly beautiful work, and he does sell them to different galleries and to specialists. But it's never enough that we could live on it. So that's why I only say semi-professional. So you forgot that entire...
Well, I hold on to that because, like most photographers, I won't become famous until after I'm dead. That's when we'll make money.
That's a lot of careers. You definitely have a lot of interests.
God, I need a little drink after that. So.
Well, then I'll read the question. Have you been to Japan before, or do you have any plans to do so? This is really funny and very topical.
This is really interesting that this came in. All right, people often ask, do you travel with your grandkids? Well, we actually are planning a trip to Japan with 2 of our grandkids.
And our daughter.
And our daughter and son-in-law, because they are into anime in a big way, cosplay in a big way, and they've always wanted to go to Japan, And so we are actually looking at that right now for 2005.
No, 20.
Why do I
20.
do that?
I don't know. You're going back in time?
I did not do well in math.
At this point, it's either 25 or 26. I mean, there are a lot of things planned up, and the kids still have school and work. So
No, it's that we've been talking. It's
Okay.
2025 because they want to go.
we'll have to figure it
They
out.
would like it to be 2024. We're booked.
We're
solid.
booked.
So yeah, all right. To all of the folks out there subscribing or following from Japan, 2K grandpas and two
We're
of the
coming.
grandkids and family members, we are going to be there.
And let us know what you think we should see while we're there.
Yeah, but include some anime stuff because
Yeah, our kids
they-
are really into that.
Yeah.
Your turn.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Have you ever been on a trip that was more interesting for one of you than the other? And how did that work out?
Well, I remember some of our first few trips we went to Italy. And Italy is the home country of my family, from middle part of Italy to southern Italy. I'm fully Italian descent. And so that was like playing roots for me to understand the culture, the background, the food. And so some years later, Grandpa Scott said to me, well, I want to explore my culture. And a lot of his family comes from Germany. And so we talked about going to Germany. And I was like, well, okay. I'd never really, had my heart set on going to Germany. Nothing against it. And so we planned it and we went. And I loved it. I just loved it. The countryside of Germany is beautiful. Little towns like Rothenburg are just magical. The food, if you love schnitzel, you're going to love. And the pastries.
Strudel.
Oh, my God. And the German people are not as gregarious, but they're very warm once you get to know them and friendly. And let me tell you, that old myth that everything in Germany runs on time, it's true. The German are run on time and clean like you wouldn't believe. So yeah, I highly recommend. And it really turned out to be an experience that I really want to go back.
Yeah, we had a wonderful road trip. We drove that country for what?
About 3-4 weeks.
3 or 4 weeks, yeah.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, your turn. What was a place that you were a little reticent about?
You know it already. Okay, and that kind of goes back to that whole thing about America the best, and yada, yada, yada. I was not all that gung-ho to go to Paris and France, okay? Because of all of the BS that I was swallowing. The French don't like us.
They're
Parisians
snooty.
are snooty. And, we went and, my God, fell in love with Paris, fell in love with
Within
France.
3 seconds of you take from the Charles de Gaulle airport, you take a bus or a shuttle, and it left us off at Garnier's Opera House. And so we decided to take a cab from there to the place we were staying in the Champ de Mars. And as we were driving, they drove us through the Place de la Concorde. And I remember Grandpa Scott turned to me and his jaw just dropped. And from that second on, he just fell in love with Paris.
Oh, yeah. And the people all over that wonderful country. And it's like any place you go, we learned a few keywords. And we also learned that when you go into somebody's shop, whether it's their fromage shop or anything, you greet the person because they look at that as part of their home, and you just wouldn't go into a house without saying hello to the person. So we greeted the people, and it was just that just opened the lock.
Yep.
It was like wonderful. Love the food.
Oh my God.
Love the wine.
Oh my God. Yeah. That just for both of us, that goes back to don't believe everything you always hear about a place. Learn for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, my turn. How do you think we can convince our homophobic parents to accept our gay relationship?
Okay.
Why don't you start with that one?
You can't.
Yeah.
The honest truth is you can't. And while my parents were cool, I had and still do have in my family some people that I don't speak to. okay, you can't, many times you can't get past that baggage of their hate, their anger, their corruption of sacred text to make any inroads. So many times you're just faced, well, I love them, but I can't have them in my life because I don't want it to prevent me from having my best and most authentic life.
Sometimes you just have to accept that.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard. And folks, we come from a time during the AIDS crisis where we had friends and new people where the parents didn't come to see their sons when they were dying, and they didn't, in many cases, even claim the bodies. And so their friends in the city would be responsible for the cremation or the burial or what have you. So the simple truth is, it may not happen.
Now, I will say, if there is a little crack in the door, if there is a little sign that they may still be open, the best thing to do is to just be there, to be your honest, true self, to show that you in a relationship have a healthy relationship, how good it makes you as a person, and how you work in society. Wear them down. Show them just by being yourself. Both of our families had not had gay family members before, at least ones that they knew of. Yeah. So while they were accepting of us, they were a little, shy to it, a little reticent, didn't know what they would encounter. And we were just ourselves. We just showed them time and again that we had a healthy, loving relationship. We had a very healthy work and living situation, and they became more and more comfortable. Don't expect them to accept you 100% overnight. Give them time, particularly if they come from a certain cultural or religious background. It might be a little challenging for them. So you invest the time and you may get to that point. But as Grandpa Scott said, you have to prepare yourselves for the fact that it may not be everything you want.
If I can just kind of add a little something to that, because it's an important issue in our community, especially for folks who are having difficulty coming out. Sometimes the reticence on your mom or dad's part is they know from their lives how our society has treated queer people. Okay, and it hasn't been great. So, point of fact is, my mom came and stayed with us for several days in San Francisco, okay? And I found this out later through my sister, what happened. She went back home and she talked to Dad, and she told Dad, we do not have to worry about the boys.
The boys are all right.
The boys are all right. And so some of it was that. They just didn't want us mistreated.
It's a part of, they're concerned about their fear for their child, that their child is going to be mistreated, abused, or not recognized in society. And those values and thoughts are changing. So just be patient and hang with them.
Yeah, try to find out what is the motivating factor in their hesitancy or whatever. Because if it's just their concern for you in a society, then you can deal with that and you can save the love.
Yep. Your turn.
Okay. How do you two decide together, Grandpa Bobby, how do you two decide together where you want to go?
No.
There's
more to this.
Don't jump into this with both feet. Do you negotiate or do you compromise?
We just do as Grandpa Scott says. No.
So untrue.
I know it is. We really have a lot of the same tastes. So it's never that we argue or deny one another. We kind of like wear each other down on it. But there are a lot of factors. Number one, and we've talked about before, is how much time you have, your resources, how much money you have. Now, point of fact, Grandpa Scott and I have talked a lot about going to Norway and seeing all the fjords. And we know that's going to be an extensive trip, and it's also going to be a very expensive trip. So it's not that we aren't going to go. It's like, when can we best suit that into our life?
Budget.
And so then we talk about it, and I liken it to when you go out to a restaurant. Sometimes one person may want Italian, the other may want Chinese. But
So you end up at Carl's.
But you both love Mexican. So it's not compromise, but finding common ground. And that's kind of the way we were with our trip for this summer to the UK. We had talked about different things, and I said, I really want to go back abroad. We haven't been abroad since the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so Grandpa Scott came up with the idea, well, if we don't want to travel between too many different countries, why don't we go to the UK? And we both came to that conclusion. So it wasn't really so much of me giving in or he giving in. It was coming to a common ground of what interests both of us.
Well, I even think there's a more relevant one, believe it or not, for us. And that was my desire to see Patagonia. Mm-hmm. And then I threw in, well, we're going to be in Patagonia. Let's do, Brazil, Argentina. Chile,
let's do all of South America.
Well, at some point I'd love to, but I was trying to hit those countries that were near Patagonia. And you weren't too sure at first, okay? So we've been through a process, or we are going through a process, because that would be a longer trip. I know your concern is in Patagonia with my health because of the elevation, but, don't worry, Grandpa.
We'll work it out.
We'll work it out.
Okay, my turn.
Yeah.
How often do you travel?
As often as we can.
Very frequently. Once again, as we had mentioned, travel for anybody depends on a lot of factors. It depends on your job. It depends on the time you have available. It depends on the resources. Now, we're in a position that's a little more flexible than other people, owning our own company and, being semi-retired, that we can choose and be frequent travelers a little more. But what we do is, if we have a major trip abroad, well, we'll then pepper it in with some smaller, more local trip. But we like to travel often. We travel about once a month.
Yeah.
It's becoming that way. It wasn't before. Before we would do like one major trip a year when we were both working 9 to 5
ones.
and a couple of small ones. But also now that we've moved to Arizona, there are a lot more local things that we're discovering. So we're traveling a lot more locally as well.
Oh, yeah. If you have not been to Arizona, you're in for a pleasant surprise. Oh, my gosh, this place has such beauty. The hiking is tremendous. I love Saguaro National Park, one of my favorite. You have the Grand Canyon, both the south and the north being my favorite. But there are areas in this state that will just take your breath away and well worth the time to come visit.
Yeah, and so our advice is, if you do love traveling, don't think it always has to be in a big, expensive, long trip. You can do smaller, long weekends and still get a lot of joy from traveling.
Yeah. Oh, well, remember there were times when we lived in Southern California that our trip was down to Laguna Beach.
Yeah.
And we would walk around, have lunch, check out some of the museums and artwork.
Or one time Grandpa Scott surprised me, and he bought tickets to a Shakespeare play in the Globe Theater down in San Diego. And we made that an overnight trip. And it was just, you really felt like you went away and you had a great experience. Yeah. So, we love to travel often.
Yep.
Your turn.
Okay. This one maybe take a little while.
Okay, settle it.
So,
let me have a drink.
Have a drink. What's your favorite part about traveling? And here's kind of like bullet points that were submitted. The arrival at your destination, the food, the places, the people, the architecture, the memories.
Oh, God, all of them, all except the arrival. The arrival is, especially if you're traveling abroad, jet lag is not pretty. Going through customs isn't fun. But once you get there, it's wonderful. But you've got to admit, I'm an architect. What can I say? Seeing the beautiful architecture, but it's not necessarily always the monuments. what I realized the very first time we went to Europe was just sitting in a cafe and turning your head 360 degrees and seeing buildings and structures that have been there for hundreds or if not thousands of years is just mesmerizing, particularly from, someone who comes from a country that's only been around for like 200 years. That to me is the settings. That really impresses me the most. Of course, followed by the food and followed by the amazing people we've met along the way.
Yeah.
How about you?
The place is always the draw, but I think more importantly is once I get there is I love meeting the people. Mm-hmm. You tease me about my thing about cafe society, and I love to observe folks and their daily lives in a city or a village, a hill town, whatever. I just think it's fascinating to watch how they go through their lives, and then after that, the food.
Yeah.
My gosh, the food. I love to cook, and so I love the food. We've tasted such wonderful food.
We have a saying in our family: no meal, no memory. Meaning, we can always remember an event as long as there was a meal attached to it, and it's kind of true.
Yeah, like when you said, "Do you remember when I first told you I loved you?" Well, there wasn't a meal with that.
But do you remember? I can remember we were in Pienza and we had that amazing pear ravioli.
Gosh, that was good.
Or the first time I had schnitzel in Germany. Food. Come on. Walking through the little village of Annecy in France. If you've never been, you really need to go. And it was early morning and the bakeries had just opened and we had croissant like you've never had them before. Sometimes the memory of the food just is evocative and brings back your whole memory of your trip.
Yeah, like right now I'm getting really hungry.
I know.
Shameless.
Okay, my turn.
Okay.
What is your favorite memory of a trip and where was it?
Oh my gosh.
I have one, so why don't I go first?
Go start first.
Okay. My favorite memory of a trip was if you've ever seen the movie Swimming to Cambodia, it's a wonderful movie. And they have a phrase in it that is the perfect moment. Your life can't always be perfect. Extended periods of time may not be perfect, but sometimes there is a perfect moment when nothing could make it better. So for me, what it was is when we were actually in France and we had an extra day and we had nothing particularly planned. So we looked at a map and we noticed that the Cinque Terre in Italy, the Italian Riviera, was not so far away. We had been there before and it's one of my favorite places on earth. So we quickly rented a car, jumped in that car, drove through the Corniche through Monte Carlo, which is a crazy experience, drove all the way down the coast, which we later learned was one of the most dangerous roads in the world.
That road down to the, yes.
We ended up in Vernazza. Just by chance, there was an Airbnb that had a room available to us. We went down to the waterfront. We grabbed a pizza, and we were sitting there by the waterfront, eating pizza. Once again, no meal, no memory. And I just remember thinking, this is perfect. Life at this moment is perfect. Being with someone I love in a place that I love with a great pizza couldn't make it any better. And I always cling to that. Sometimes when you're stressed out in your life, it's nice to have a moment or a memory that you can just try to be back in that moment, remember how it feels. And whenever you come across these perfect memories or moments, tell yourself that. Tell yourself to remember everything about it so you can draw upon it later when times aren't so great.
Yeah.
How about you?
Oh my gosh, it's Vernazza again. All right. Only this time it's you and I, and it was one of those spontaneous things again. But they had the restaurant had the tables out along the water on the wharf, and we sat down, and we ordered some food and wine. But then the band began to play, and they played Brazil, and I remember, and he's like, da, 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 da,
One of our
da,
favorite
da, da, da.
songs.
And we both just looked at each other, and we looked at the location, and that the Mediterranean, it was just the scent of it. It was so beautiful. And we just both looked and we both said, perfect moment.
Yeah. Yep. So
Yeah.
strive to find those perfect moments because, you know, we're talking about sometimes arrival on a trip can be stressful and trying to learn the trains or back and forth or driving in traffic even locally. But you can't expect every moment of every trip or every travel to be perfect. But there are times when the moments are perfect, and always try to hold on to those and remember them because they really enrich your life.
No, most assuredly.
Your turn.
Okay, here we go.
That looks like a lot of words
Well,
on that
you know
one.
what? We've had some wonderful questions.
Yeah, you guys have been really
Thank you.
terrific.
Oh, from all of our social media platforms, we got lots of questions.
Yeah.
And so we probably will have to do another one of
Yeah,
these or
yeah.
maybe
We'll definitely.
3. So let's go with this, Grandpa Bobby. Let's say you're at the end of your travel budget for that year, okay? But you've just enough money for exactly one more trip for a week stay to somewhere you've already been. Where would you return to and why?
Okay, just a week stay, and I can only go to one place. I would say Paris. And the reason I would say Paris, first of all, Paris is beautiful. There's so much to see and do in just a short little walking area around Paris. There's so many architectures to see. My gosh, you can see. We'll be able to see Notre Dame later this year. Saint-Chapelle. You could spend days in the Louvre. You could. There are so many. The Tuileries. You can just walk around, walking the Seine, eating in restaurants, walking the Marais. I want to do that more. The Eiffel Tower. I think it would be Paris, just because there's so much to see and do in just a little area, and you could just fill a week with that.
Okay, so I got real practical on this. I go, okay, they said I have a week. That means I got 1 day of travel to, 1 day of travel back. I got 3 days, right?
A week? Wait, but you just said,
no.
let's do the
I
new
told you
math.
I was really bad at math. Okay, so 1 day there,
Right.
1 day back
Yeah.
means 5.
5.
That's 5, boys and girls. 5 days to do stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I would go with someplace that I've been that was close. And I would go to British Columbia, Canada.
Oh.
And even edge over into Alberta because I love the national parks there. I love the hiking. I love the beauty. Vancouver. Oh my
Stunning.
God, what a wonderful city, wonderful people. And, and I might even do it in winter this time.
That would be challenging.
I'd be doing it alone, eh?
Yeah, probably.
But I would. I saw some beautiful photos of it at wintertime. And so I think I'd like to maybe experience in winter.
Run a cabin.
Alone.
Yeah, right. No, if you had a lovely cabin in Jasper, I might join you by the fireplace and I'll wave. Okay. What inspires you?
That's easy. You.
You took my answer.
No, you
I
do.
inspire me. No, you inspire me too.
No, you inspire
No,
me.
you inspire me.
No, you inspire me. Our friends in San Francisco would call us Chippendale.
If you remember the cartoon characters, yeah, we
Some of
kind
you
of
are
like
too
that.
young. Yeah.
Yeah, we motivate each other, we inspire each other, we encourage each other, we support each other's dreams and ambitions. We're each other's best friend. And that's inspirational. We challenge one another to be the best person we can be and to be better than we are and to constantly grow.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
That's true. Corny, but true.
Very corny, but very true.
Let's go on. Let's not get too
Yeah,
schmaltzy.
that's a
Next
small
question.
Okay. Okay. What was your most memorable class? Oh, I love this question. Okay. All right.
I'm afraid.
Love it. Okay, I love
I'm
it.
afraid.
All of them have been good.
Yes.
But there's something about this that just, well, you'll find out why. What was your most memorable glass of wine in your travels?
Glass of wine. Well, actually, it wasn't a glass of wine.
The question asked for a glass of
Okay,
wine.
alcoholic beverage. It was a beer. Okay, can I do a beer?
Can you do a beer?
Can I do a beer? I'll do a beer. We were in the Piazza Navona. It was the summer, we took my mom. And we took my mom for her 80th birthday. And she has passed now. And let me tell you, I am so glad we did. It's an experience that I'll treasure. But anyway, that story aside, we were in the Piazza Navona with a beer. And the phone rang. Your phone rang.
Yeah.
And which is really strange because, you don't expect your phone to ring when you're over in Europe.
You think, oh my God, who died?
Who died? And it was our daughter calling us. And our daughter was calling us to tell Grandpa Scott that he had passed his real estate broker's exam and he could now be a realtor. And we were just sitting there, another perfect
No,
moment.
I could be a real estate broker.
Right, as I said, a broker.
Well, I was already a realtor.
Yes, you were a realtor, but you have and own your own brokerage. And that was a big accomplishment in his
the
life.
best part, I passed it on the first time.
Yes, yeah, and a lot of people don't do that.
Oops.
So we toasted, we had beer in hand, we actually have a picture of it.
Yeah.
And so that was my most memorable alcoholic beverage. Okay, it wasn't a glass of wine.
Okay.
So where was yours?
Tuscany.
Of course,
All right.
as one does.
As one does. And it remains my favorite wine. Brunello.
Of course, not cheap. You'll see a running trend with Grandpa Scott.
Me loves my Brunello. But yeah, and it was in Tuscany.
Mm-hmm.
And
That wonderful little, in Montepulciano, that
Yes.
little place where we ended up buying a case of wine and went down into the cellars.
yeah, and we go back many times and send back
Yeah.
24 bottles of just Brunello.
Yeah, it's an
That's
expensive
it.
souvenir.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, that is it.
Yeah.
That is it. How interesting.
My turn.
Yeah. We can't be close to the
We
end.
are.
No.
How do you choose your travels? Well, we've kind of touched upon this briefly before. We choose them as you should also choose your travels based on a lot of factors. Where do you want to go? How much time do you have? How much money do you have? And what are the factors regarding travel, health, and also, your safety too, if you're a member of the LGBTQAI plus community? All of those go into where you decide to travel.
Yeah, and I think that there are some questions like that we'll have to answer in the next Q&A.
Yeah,
that
we'll go
we do.
further into that.
We'll go into
Travel, because many people have talked to us about traveling as an LGBTQ person. But we'll go back into that in another episode.
Yep.
Last question.
Last question. When was the moment you knew you loved each other?
You go first.
Ooh, I'm being candid here. Okay. God, this is so silly. It was the first night we met, and it was in San Francisco, and we met at the dance club, right? And I didn't want to come off too forward. And so we spent almost until sunrise standing out in front of that bakery, each of us going,
Didn't want the night to end.
Well, we always would think he'll think I'm just wanting his body. If I say anything, you want to. So yeah, that was when I said, "Oh yeah, I really have it for this guy."
I'm at the same time, I was living in a studio apartment, and to call the person, you had to pick up a phone and you dial it, and it went to their phone, their landline. So I must have been on the phone when Grandpa Scott decided to come over. Now, at this time, we were only going to see each other. We said, okay, we'll see each other on Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays, and then we'll have Tuesday. Well, it was a Tuesday night. It was our off night. And I'm on the phone, and all of a sudden I hear this tapping sound. And I'm like, what the hell is that? So I went over to my kitchen in my little studio apartment, and there's Grandpa Scott throwing rocks at the window to get my attention. And I don't know who I was on the phone with, but I was like, I gotta go now. And I realized this guy he's either going to drive me crazy or be the love of my life.
Or both.
And it came out to be both. So, yeah, that's our kind of schmaltzy tale.
Yeah. Wow. This has been some interesting questions.
A lot of interesting insights.
We really do hope you've enjoyed it.
Yeah. So I think that's enough for the what?
What do you think about this episode?
Well, I think, first of all, I want to thank you guys. The questions you submitted have been very insightful and very revealing to us. So, sometimes we answer your questions, but we answer things to ourselves too. Mm-hmm. So it's been very, very illuminating.
Yeah. And I hopefully a little fun for you.
Hopefully enjoyable, and maybe told you a little bit more about us.
Yeah, because we answer these without looking at them beforehand. I mean, we of course we got them in and we put them down so we wouldn't have time.
Yeah, we haven't revisited them, so I think you can tell that it's a little bit extemporaneous here.
A lot extemporaneous. But I guess that's it for this episode.
I think that's enough for this episode.
Yeah.
But definitely, please tune in to our next episode, and we would love it if you'd subscribe and tell your friends about it.
And are you going to ask me what next episode is about?
What's the next episode going to be about?
Well, I think the next episode is about our adventures in Alaska for Gay Pride Month.
That's coming up.
Yeah, we leave
in a little bit, a few days. We leave for Sitka, Alaska. So we will definitely have some interesting adventures.
And if you're up there watching us or listening to us in Sitka, we are so excited to come up there and be part of your wonderful June Pride Month celebration.
Yep. And happy Pride to everyone out there. Definitely celebrate.
Absolutely.
And always remember, as we like to say, whenever you travel, be it travel abroad, locally, or as you travel through life, travel your heart. Bye-bye, folks.
Bye, everybody.